let's talk about this pay-per-view. And if I have any more beard-related questions, I'll pass them on here. So anyway, we missed a Inferno match, which Kane won via fire, and the four-way ladder match, which the good guys, the young babyfaces, won via win. I actually didn't see any of that match, but you saw the end, Vince. How was the end?
There was some very crazy ladderness. Regal and Taylor just looked odd in there. There was a very wacky spot where I think it was Matt Hardy. He set up two ladders and began to climb them both at the same time. They did this just so Regal and Taylor could yank the ladders apart and send them falling to earth. But there was wackiness. There was a very scary backdrop off the ladder. There was a very scary sliced bread number 2 off the ladder, and finally London won.
Did Dave Taylor avoid the ladder with his torn MCL? Did you ever see him get near it?
He teased climbing it and got about half a rung up before Kendrick yanked him down.
Wise man.
In fact, JBL was actually talking about how the European guys were afraid of heights, so perhaps they just never climbed them.
That's for the best.
Yeah.
Any memories of that match, Paul, that you'd like to comment on?
That neck breaker off the top of the. Yeah, that's all I got to say.
There were 2 big neck breakers tonight. We'll get to the other one in a minute. I only saw images from this match. I was wandering in and out while talking to the lady from the cable company, but it looked great, what I saw.
Yeah.
And they showed the spot of Joey Mercury's face getting destroyed. They did the teeter-totter ladder spot, and it really went into his face.
Yeah, that's not how it's supposed to go.
Nose busted open.
Both eyes swollen.
Oh, yeah, he looked like a ladder had been teeter-tottered into his face by a 240-pound man.
It was a sad day in Mercury Land.
So he was hospitalized.
When we started in, JBL was ranting about how Nitro's partner had been sent to the hospital and how he had to win the tag belts on his own, and I thought, oh, God, they fired Mercury.
You know what scared me was right before we started watching it, I got an email, and the subject line just said Kendrick. And I thought,
uh-oh.
Oh, Jesus. Please don't tell me somebody died somehow tonight. And it turns out it was one of those stupid spams. It's like from Joe Kendrick. And so the subject line is, I get some weird spam. Remember those spams I told you that I got that was just like weird names?
Yeah.
I got some today. I want to read a couple to you.
I got a great one where there was just a picture, like buy pills or whatever they were selling. And then there's this paragraph.
Forward it to me.
I will forward it to you. But there's a paragraph about a hockey player and how when you see the hockey player, you will know the time is right. And then it ended with just like repeating over and over again, die, just die, just die, just die. This spam is awesome.
I've got one here from Strickland E. Bill. It's always a first name, a last name, and just a random middle initial. I thought I had more, but apparently not. Anyway, let's get back to wrestling here. I just like to stall for time sometimes. Mm-hmm. So anyway, after those 2 matches, what's the first thing we end up seeing? The Boogeyman versus The Miz. Now, granted, I loved SmackDown when Miz ate monkey brains and whatever the other thing was, but could not eat worms. That was too much for The Miz. And then the Boogeyman's head, in the most jovial manner possible, came out of the plate of worms, smiled, and Miz ran off. Great. Mm-hmm. That was great entertainment. Watching them wrestle is not great entertainment.
Correct.
Thankfully, they got...
I'm in agreement with that statement.
Paul could not hold his tongue any longer.
He could not. They got 3 minutes, which is actually double the time most TNA number 1 contender matches for the X title get. It was horrible.
Fuck yeah.
I watched this match, and every guy at Buddy's school tonight, including you, could have had a better match than these 2 geeks had tonight. It was so bad.
I am better than the Boogeyman.
You are, in fact, better than the Boogeyman. Mm-hmm. He's got a better body.
Yes.
Thought I'd throw that
Probably
out
better
there.
gimmick.
Paul's got to say something here.
Well, I'm not one to judge, but gosh, that just reeked of worms, you know?
That just shit? But I'm saying the swear words for you, Paul.
This man actually said gosh, and you turned to him and said shit to his face.
Yes.
You're a horrible person.
I don't mean that, but it was horrible, as Paul said, reeked of worms, a tree slam finish.
Which,
And
by the way, there was a great moment where Boogeyman's hand slipped off.
Yeah.
And Miz had to hold him there with his hand on Boogeyman's wrist. It was like a no-hands tree slam.
Yes. So then after all this build, Miz is on his back, and Boogie just put some worms in his mouth and literally ran away. That was the end.
Watching Boogeyman run was comedy, but
Thumbs down.
this was indeed a thumbs down. Paul?
Thumbs down.
You've got the Chavo and Vicky cutting a promo. Chavo said he was dedicating the match to her. She said, "Thank you for being a real man, not like Chris Benoit." She said that tonight he was not only going to lose the U.S. title, but he was going to get what was coming to him. They had a match. It was a good match. 3 stars, maybe 3.25. Let's go Benoit chants, some Vicky sucks chants. They work well together. This wasn't blowaway or anything like that. I don't know if it's just they don't have blowaway matches. They have good but not great, or if maybe they're saving it for something. My favorite spot in the match was Benoit did the German suplexes. And he did 3, and I immediately predicted 10. He's going to do 10. He ended up doing 8. Now, the reason I thought he was going to do 10 was because in Angle and Joe, Angle was supposed to give Joe 10, and he only made 3. And I thought, they're going to do 10 and laugh at Kurt Angle. And then, after he did 8 and stopped, I realized they don't give a shit about TNA.
Yeah.
I have been snowed by Dixie Carter. So anyway, they had this match, and Vicky tried to interfere. Benoit went to put her in the sharpshooter, and Chavo rolled him up from behind, but Benoit kept rolling, put on the crossface, and got the clean... the sharpshooter, actually. Got the clean submission. And thumbs up match. Good stuff.
Definite thumbs up, definite good stuff. There was a point here where when Chavo got the heat, it was quiet, and there was a small, slight, boring chant, and then Benoit began his comeback and looked... As he often does, like the best wrestler there's ever been.
Yes.
And so, honestly, Chavo's good. Chavo's very good, but he's not a Benoit guy, and I don't think he's ever going to be.
Oh, no.
So,
as a worker?
Well,
no one's going to ever be a Benoit
I don't
guy.
mean that. I just mean...
Working to that level, working to the level that he could have a 4.5-star match with Chris Benoit. What are you saying?
I'm saying I don't think you can expect much more from Benoit and Guerrero than you got tonight.
I see. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Paul?
Well, I think by far this was the best match on the card.
Well, we didn't see the ladder match, but of what we saw, yeah, probably.
Yeah, of what I saw.
Yeah.
And for being a match that's been overdone as far as I'm concerned, I think that it was crisp and fun to watch.
What do you think of the whole, after a year, still using Eddie Guerrero in storylines? Do you feel it's a good tribute to the man, or is it too much?
I think it's too much.
When did you first start thinking it was too much?
About 4 months ago.
That's good. You lasted longer than some people there.
I made it about 3 weeks, I think.
I made it to that first hearse deal.
Yeah, the lowrider.
It's strange because they should do tributes to Eddie forever. Their idea of a tribute is odd.
Yeah, that right there is the best way to put it.
Still a part of storylines despite being deceased.
He's still
That's weird.
He is still a character on SmackDown.
Yeah, it's like
even though I don't think they ever mentioned him by name tonight, he's still there.
Yeah, the angle with Rey Mysterio was, I don't know, like the spirit of Eddie was in him. Like this was Eddie's reign that Rey got.
Yes.
I mean, the whole Rey Mysterio reign was about Eddie. Yep. And it wasn't about Eddie like, boy, I'm doing this for you, brother. It was like, I don't know. Like,
it was Rey Mysterio playing the part of Eddie
Yeah,
Guerrero.
he was playing the role of Eddie. That was weird. So anyway, good match. Then we had Gregory Helms and Jimmy Wang Yang for the Cruiserweight title. And I thought the highlight of this match was Gregory Helms' sunburn. He was red, like a lobster. And I just sat there and I thought, the two things this man is not going to want to do in this match is A, hit the ropes, and B, get chopped. Sure enough, he looked like he was hating life. Particularly this one chop that Wayne gave him, and he just like grabbed his chest and bent over, and I thought, he's just going to start crying.
He the first thing he did was grab his chest, turn his back, and bend over to ensure there would be no further chops.
I would have slapped him right on the back. They should have played into the storyline, you know what I mean? Why not?
I've seen that done too.
Boy, you've got a bad sunburn today. I'm going to slap you as hard as I can. He had a horrible sunburn here today, so they had a good match. This was a match where we had some boring chants, and JBL went nuts and pretty much called the fans assholes and idiots.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
It was great, and he was right. He's talking about how the fans didn't deserve it and everything, And Michael Cole made this half-hearted note about how you shouldn't talk to the SmackDown fans that way, and JBL was having none of it. He held nothing back. He buried these fans.
Yeah, I don't know, because they always talk about the fans do have a right to do whatever they want. I mean, can you really... Okay, if WWE put a fucking Inferno match first,
Right.
and then a ladder match, you're going to yell at the fans because they're not into the wrestling match you put in the middle of the fucking card?
Well, no, that was in fact stupid.
So why are you yelling at the fans? I don't necessarily... I mean, it wasn't right for the fans to chant boring in this match because these guys were working hard. The guys were handicapped. Mm-hmm. The fans they might as well have chanted "fuck WWE" or something like that, or whatever. But I don't think the fans should have booed. But I don't think JBL should have yelled at them because they did.
Well, there's the fact that he is a heel.
Well, he is a heel, but this was not JBL heel. This was your real JBL that you get every now and then when he gets angry. He was mad at the fans. As a heel, okay, here's a question. As a heel, if this were just JBL being a heel, he was healing on the fans live that couldn't hear him. What was the point?
I don't know.
Come on, be a Jubs here. Give me some sort of...
But, well...
So anyway, that was an interesting little deal, but ended up with Helms. Actually, Helms was bleeding from the face, and he pretty much got the pin with it's Carlito's backcracker to the nose, something of that nature, and then got the pin, and that was that. Probably 3 stars. Fans gave it about 1, but they worked hard. It was good. Everyone looked good, and I have no complaints.
No, and so far this is looking like, considering we knew the ladder match would be good, even though we didn't see it, I was thinking this so far is a great show.
Yeah. Paul, thoughts on this match?
Well, I definitely think it took second place.
What do you think of the redneck?
Oh, I love the lobster.
No, the redneck.
Well, to be fair,
actually, you're right.
Gregor Helm's neck, much like the rest of his body, was in fact red.
He was a legit redneck of the two. What do you think about the
Chinese man?
Who called it that?
What's that?
I think it was Mark called him the Chinaman. So anyway, what do you think of that?
Korean, everyone, but
Jimmy Wang Yang is a cowboy.
Well, I think he's the Asian Jeff Jarrett.
An Asian Jeff Jarrett. He needs to play the guitar.
Yeah, that'd work for him.
Buddy wants you to be in a jug band. That was his other idea for your gimmick.
A what now?
A jug band. You haven't heard of a jug band?
Explain.
You know, like...
Well, there's a bunch of rednecks, hillbillies, bumpkins. They get a jug and they form a band.
Sure.
That's pretty much it. You get the jug.
You blow into the...
Yeah, you blow on the top of the jug, and you get the guy with the washboard.
And a banjo, you know.
Banjo, and...
Can you play the banjo?
The washtub bass and all that kind of good stuff.
Paul's got about 8 guitars. Electric, acoustic electric. He doesn't have a banjo, though.
No banjo.
What about a Jew's harp? You have one of those?
No harps. Just a bass, guitar, and the drums.
When I was about 8, I got myself a Jew's harp.
Where'd it go?
I don't know. I was a big fan of, this was the comic I read when I was a kid, Charlie Brown.
Fine art.
And I believe Snoopy had a Jew's harp. And I was like, I gotta get me one of those. And I got it, and you like put it up to your teeth. You like put the metal on your teeth, and you go ding, 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 like that. And my gums were bleeding. And I was like, this instrument sucks. That was the end of my...
your Jew's harp career?
Experience with the Jew's harp.
I was more of a Calvin and Hobbes kind of guy.
Vinny, weren't you a fan of Calvin and Hobbes?
Dude, I read everything.
I should have known.
Calvin and the Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes was big in my family because we had a young cousin. Well, he's my cousin, and everyone compared him to Calvin.
And they compared you to Hobbes?
He never. No, my name never came up in that conversation. If it did, it probably would have been a Far Side character. But yes, we had a young cousin who was running around and getting broken and falling into dirt and stuff. So
that sucks. Then we had Kennedy coming out cutting a promo. Mark loves Ken Kennedy. He just laughs and laughs and laughs. I will say this. I'm not a huge fan of Ken Kennedy. His matches normally bore the shit out of me. He had this match with Undertaker, a last ride match, of which we all had a big discussion about. What does that mean? Why don't they call it a car match? That was Sean's
idea, yes.
Yeah. Or a something of that nature. But so anyway, I didn't even know what the rules were at first when I heard last ride. I thought it was whoever does the Undertaker's powerbomb first wins. This is what I thought weeks back. Then I figured out it was involving a hearse. That was brought to my attention. And then during the show, every single one of us is like, how do you win? Do you just put him in the car? Do you have to drive the car out? What do you do here? So we eventually learned midway through the match, when The Undertaker got shut in the car, that you had to drive it out of the building. You had to drive the hearse out of the building to win.
Correct.
All right. So they had this match, and they had all sorts of wacky spots and chairs, and there was broken glass, and this, that, and the other thing. It's Armageddon, so the set was a castle. I don't quite know why. If anybody has a good explanation here, feel free to speak up.
You know, I think Vinny put it best when he said it looked like the set of Double Dare.
When they climbed this thing, I expected them to have a ball pit and a rope swing and a slide and a wall to climb.
So they climb up onto this set, and it was like Plan 9 from outer space. There were all these turrets, but they were obviously made of cardboard, and they were just bonking into them, and they were tipping over.
Or perhaps foam rubber. I think Undertaker grabbed it at one point and his fingers squeezed in.
Sure. So they're brawling up there, and all of a sudden Undertaker gets thrown off. And this is a good 15 feet up. You just see Kennedy hurk him, and you see the Undertaker's body fly through the air and vanish off screen. You hear this, and we're like, holy shit, he must have died or something. So all of a sudden they decide, let's show an aerial shot. So they show an aerial shot, and the Undertaker is lying on a giant black foam crash pad.
Correct.
They didn't cover it with boxes.
No. No, the coil up cables they put out there.
Yeah, they didn't put some, I don't know, fake monitors, tombstones from Plan 9,
Sure.
anything like that. They put out a black crash pad. All that was missing was crash pad written on it in giant white bold letters. Undertaker's laying there, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, he landed on a crash pad, and no one cared. Mm-hmm. So Undertaker's there, and JBL's speaking in hushed tones. I've never seen Undertaker been thrown off anything before, and Cole's like, he ain't moving. And so they throw Undertaker, they drag him over, Kennedy, and throws him into the back of the hearse.
This was great.
And he gets in, and they have a hearse cam.
Uh-huh.
And the hearse cam is looking at Ken Kennedy starting the car, and all of a sudden, up rises the Undertaker's face.
Over Kennedy's shoulder, we see the Undertaker sit up and give the Undertaker look.
It was awesome.
It was so phenomenally awesome. And then Kennedy, first everyone cheered, and then Kennedy looked in the rearview mirror and screamed.
Yes, and Undertaker grabbed him.
Reached forward and grabbed him by the face and yanked him in the back seat.
Goozled him.
I don't remember much of the other 20 minutes of this match, and I don't care.
No.
Just for this moment, this match gets a solid thumbs up.
Undertaker beat the piss out of him, hit him with a chair. He gigged. He gave him the choke slam on the top of the car. Fans chanted tombstone, so he gave him the tombstone, threw him in the hearse, drove under the Titantron, which I guess counts as out of the building, because as soon as he was under the Titantron, the bell rang. And thumbs up. Yeah. I gave this 3 1/4. Probably about I gave this pretty much the same as the Benoit Chavo match. It was different. It was certainly different.
It was more spectacle.
It was more spectacle. It was a lot of gimmicks. It was a lot of wackiness. The crash pad, I got to give a 1/4 star for the crash pad. Seriously now.
That was the second most blatant crash pad in history. Second only to the time when Shane McMahon was wrestling Kane.
Yes.
And he went to do the dropkick off the ambulance, and he actually had to drag the crash pad into position.
Yeah.
Which made it abundantly clear.
Oh, yeah. It was almost like he jumped into the jumpaline that we saw at Buddy's house.
That's correct.
I got to give this a thumbs up. Paul, your thoughts?
Well, I thought the whole Undertaker rising up from the back of the hearse, beautiful. Straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Second of all, the match stretched a little bit longer than I liked.
Yeah, it was a little long.
And other than that, it was beautiful.
What do you think of The Undertaker? Are you a big Undertaker fan?
You know, I haven't been a huge Undertaker fan, but I've always appreciated what he's done for the business.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, as a person who looks up to other wrestlers' wrestling styles, I don't mimic his.
Undertaker is a weird case study because
Yes.
sometimes I get very angry at him. And really tonight it's like, you know, I'm not going to complain about it because I don't give a shit, but they destroyed Kennedy, and they destroyed MVP. I mean, that feud ended with Undertaker and Kane beating them decisively.
Yes.
So I don't know really what they got out of it. Maybe you could say they got the rub, that sort of thing.
No. It was not good for Kennedy. It was not good for MVP, but I don't think they have intentions of MVP being taken seriously anytime soon.
No.
It's weird because if the people...
I'm not done. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, with all that said, when it came time to vote Undertaker into the Observer Hall of Fame, many people vociferously argued against his inclusion. Very much so. And for many years, I also did not vote for Undertaker. I was like, great, he's been around for 12 years. Who gives a fuck? He rolls his eyes, he has some wacky matches, he never loses, he never really has great matches, whatever. And then, I think it was after I wrote Death of WCW, because I was covering every week, and I was doing the quarter hours and the audience and that sort of thing, and he had that match with Steve Austin that did a fucking 9.4 on Raw. Ungodly amounts of viewers.
Yeah.
And it wasn't only that. I was following all of that period, and he was in these storylines and segments that were doing ungodly numbers.
Yeah,
and I thought,
Taker and Austin, and then Taker and Rock, and Taker and Hunter, and there was always doing money.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the other side of the equation. A lot of people will say, yeah, Rock could have wrestled anybody. No, that's not the case. So, in the end, I voted him in. I was very strongly in favor of voting Undertaker in. I don't necessarily want to watch his fucking 25-minute matches and everything like that, which we seem to see all the time, but I cannot deny that the guy is a Hall of Famer. Now, Vinny, what were you saying?
Well, if you talk to your people who are casual fans or non-fans who may watch a show once a year, they all know who The Undertaker is.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a guy they want to check out. They want to see him. And it's kind of like, I can't fault them too much, particularly MVP. I guess you could argue Kennedy they may have had potential at some point, but the people who pay money to watch The Undertaker wrestle don't want to pay money to see Undertaker lose.
Yeah.
So, unless you are dead certain, Orton WrestleMania was different because it's Mania, but unless you were certain that Ken Kennedy is going to be main eventing pay-per-views within the next 6 months, he probably should have lost here.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not. I do not in any way think that Ken Kennedy or MVP should have won. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Maybe
it's kind of, I had the same thought too when not the last tag match they did, but the first tag match they did where Taker and Kane beat up MVP and Kennedy for seriously like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we're on offense for about 19 and a half minutes.
That I thought was a disaster.
It killed Kennedy and MVP, but all they could think was, this is kind of what the fans want to see.
Yeah.
And it's bad for the future, but for the present, those fans left the building happy.
Yes.
And the fans who were watching on TV probably were happy with it.
Now, people talk about giving guys a rub and that sort of thing, and in the end, here's whether we'll determine whether they actually got a rub, even if they lost tonight from feuding with these two guys. It's always, where does it go from here? If they lost tonight and on SmackDown, they're mid-card guys feuding with...
each other?
No, not even each other. Just the Johnsons, if they bring back the fucking Johnsons or something
the
like
Boogeyman.
that. The Boogeyman or something of that nature. This was a failure. If they keep pushing these guys hard, as much as I don't necessarily want to see it, particularly MVP, I'll give Kennedy the benefit of the doubt. Of the two, he has done a better job than young MVP since they both gotten their big push. If they keep pushing them hard, then maybe this did do something. Maybe this did give them some credibility with the fans to have hung with these two guys, even though in the end they lost. So, we shall see, but this was thumbs up. I got to give that match a thumbs up right there, so... Then we had Finlay meeting with Booker backstage. This was the first of two completely inexplicable segments. Finlay meets with Booker, and they had this... I don't even know what happened.
Finlay said, "Booker, I am not going to double-cross you." Which all I could think was, someday someone needs to promo and a guy needs to push his partner or his buddy or his bodyguard and say, "I am going to double-cross you."
Yes.
"Tonight, in the main event, I'm going to stab you in the back."
Yes.
But Finlay said he would not double-cross Booker. Booker said he would not double-cross Finlay. Charmel walked in.
But then, they both agreed.
Yeah, they agreed not to double-cross each other.
And then Charmel comes in and was like, "You guys are not going to double-cross each other now." Like, she's giving him a stern lecture.
Yeah.
And I thought, we just cleared this, but thank you. So then it gets even stranger, because Finlay's like, "I've got a shillelagh, and I've got a midget, and all you've got is her.
Well, he also did this in the most cranked up to 11 fake Irish accent you could possibly do.
What was that all about?
You didn't even notice it, did you?
No, I did.
Okay.
No, but I'm wondering what the whole segment was about.
I don't know.
It ended, and I was like, what was that?
I don't know what the point of it was. If it was, I don't know how it helped the match. I don't know how it hurt the match. I don't know how it sold anything. It was just odd.
So then we went right to the Royal Rumble commercial, which was even more strange. It was DX ripping up the Constitution and hitting the Liberty Bell.
Yes.
That's the extent of it. I don't know.
They were in colonial dress.
Sure.
Sean ripped off Hunter's colonial hat, revealing a colonial bald wig, and marked out for this.
Yes.
I'm not,
That's the end, kids.
And then it ended.
Paul, how many pay-per-views do you normally get? Do you see a lot of them or not very many?
Usually I'm watching the TNA pay-per-views.
Really?
On occasion, it's the WWE pay-per-views.
Wow. You're going to have to start coming to the TNA shows with us.
Probably a wise choice.
Yeah. I didn't know you actually got all
It seems
those.
on a regular basis I'm more entertained by the TNA pay-per-views than the WWE ones.
I'm trying to really think about this.
I'd say that's generally true.
Generally.
Certainly not always.
The last couple of shows have been one-match shows, I sort of think.
Yeah.
But the last ECW pay-per-view was worse than any TNA show I think there's
In
ever
a
been.
long effing time.
So, then we had Layla, Crystal, Ashley, and Jillian, and Ashley. Somehow I put Ashley's name in here twice. One for each breast, apparently. In a Diva Christmas stripper lingerie match. Santa was there. Of the four, Paul, who's your favorite? Layla, Crystal, Ashley, or Jillian?
God help all these misguided souls.
He's praying for us, Brian.
Who has the best personality of these four young lasses?
I definitely have to say Layla.
Layla?
She's bright
Bright?
and
Shake that booty?
for a lack of better term, perky.
Perky. She is perky, Paul. That's good. Convinced.
I'm going to hell.
We're all going to hell. Who said that during this pay-per-view? JBL, actually.
I think it was JBL.
And it was at the end of this. What a coincidence. I'm a big fan of Crystal, young Crystal.
She's
Funniest thing of all
a
was
very talented young lady.
Mark was like, who's the blonde? He didn't even know Jillian.
No, I had no idea who she was.
That was great. They came out, they all stripped down, and the fans voted for Ashley. It's absurd. So I guess she won, but Santa goes, the winner's everyone. Yeah. Ha, ho, 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 he said. And then he goes, hit my music. What did you say earlier?
I called it.
What did you say? God save these souls? Or what was your exact term you used about the girls?
Oh, God save these poor misguided souls.
Save these poor misguided souls in WWE that thought that was a good idea. This fat white guy was wearing less than any of the girls. Mm-hmm. Danced and jiggled in his thong. Why?
That's the second pay-per-view in a week where the guy's gotten more naked than the chicks.
Yeah, why?
Unacceptable.
It is completely unacceptable.
VKM was right. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah. So anyway, then he danced to the back, and the announcers said, we're all going to hell. And I thought, yep, you called it. Booker T and Fit Finlay versus John Cena and Big Dave. This was an odd match. It was a SmackDown main event, which we in fact saw about a month ago with a clean finish, and I think that one was better.
Yeah.
I know for sure the match we saw this past Friday with Finlay versus Cena was better. This match got about 8 minutes, and Big Dave pinned Booker with the Big Dave bomb. The good guys celebrated, and it ended. It wasn't a bad match.
But it wasn't a good one.
It wasn't particularly good.
It was going along fine for a while, and then the last 3 minutes were pretty sloppy.
I'd say 2 1/4, maybe 2 1/2. It was very sloppy at the end. Booker and Batista were on two different books.
They were Finlay, like you say, Finlay and Cena were out of the ring, and Booker and Batista were setting up for what should have been the big finish of the main event of the pay-per-view, and they proceeded to grab each other in a hold and discuss things for a while.
Yes.
It was bad.
Now, the highlight for me was, apparently the jackass midget does this, but the little midget came in the ring, and he was going to kick Cena. And Cena moved, and the midget kicked himself in the head.
He punted himself in the forehead.
Now, when they first said this, I was like, the midget kicked himself in the head? What? And they showed a replay, and indeed, this midget kicked himself in the face. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if he does that every match, that will get over. That's good stuff right there. That midget just kicked himself in the head.
Right in the forehead.
Other than that, though, nothing right home about. It was just weird. Like, why did we get this match? Why did it end like this? It didn't even set up anything.
Exactly. I would have bet money that Finlay would have pinned Batista to end this match.
Yeah, it was just
or lay him out. In fact, about a minute before the finish, Finlay whacked Batista in the leg with either a chair or a stick. I forget, but he whacked him in the chair, and it led to nothing.
Yeah,
it didn't even lead. It didn't even lead to Booker getting the heat on him. He just shook it off and hit the Big Dave bomb. And I was left thinking, that was not particularly good and completely, utterly pointless.
Yeah.
Unless we were really supposed to be marks for the belts and think, oh my God, I actually saw the two champions in the same team. I'll tell my children about this someday.
I mean, Cole was talking about what historic night this is.
Yeah.
And I thought, historic in that it's the first main event that's meant nothing in the entire year? What does that mean, historic? The only thing I could think was, it's December, year's almost over, last WWE pay-per-view of the year, send the kids home happy. Because Christmas with the troops is next Monday. All that's going to be is all the baby faces winning, and doing the stuff for the troops. So SmackDown may just be all the baby faces getting another big win, and we go off the end 2007 with just a bunch of good guys winning. That's all I could think of. So, yeah.
I don't know.
Paul, your thoughts on the main event? Anything to add?
You know, I think that the two former WCW wrestlers, Finlay and Booker T, definitely had something to add to the match. As far as Cena and Dave Batista go, I don't have a whole lot to say for them.
Not the best workers you've
Paul,
ever seen.
did your mother ever tell you to, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all?
I think she just told me to speak my mind.
I got to ask you this question, Paul. We're done with the pay-per-view recap, kids.
Honestly,